Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind podcast with Bob and Hillary, episode 74 this week, talking what do you do when you buy a dud site? What do you do when you buy a dud site? This is going to be a great episode. We're going to look at the reasons why you might buy one and what you could do to mitigate potential nightmare, I suppose we could go with. Bob's got some great stories and some great strategies. I'll ask him some great questions and come up with a few great things myself. Let's jump on into episode 74. Hello and welcome to episode 74, Property Mastermind podcast with Bob and Hillary. We've got the book today, Property Millionaires Exposed. The copy of this book this week goes to Jonathan Zavila. Had a bit of a yarn with Jonathan yesterday. And anyway, he said he's new to our podcast, just found us and couldn't believe how awesome it is. So how good's that? Always love that sort of feedback. But he may have been an inspiration for future podcasts coming forward. We always get some ideas on what people would like to know. But anyway, before we get started on the actual podcast, what do you do when you buy a lemon site? We've got to say, hey, Bob, cheers for coming to our podcast now. We've renamed it to both of our podcasts.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for renaming.
Yeah.
It's like renaming a boat or a ship or something. Is it good luck?
Well, I didn't know. I just saw an email when Georgia must have asked how you rename it, because we've decided to call it with Bob and Hillary now.
Oh, thanks.
I remember episode 1 went out and it must have been somebody who, no, they said, and it was said Property Mastermind podcast with Hillary, and some guy commented, who do you think you are, or something.
Yeah.
It didn't last long. He deleted his own comment. I think he sort of pulled his head and he must have got a bit embarrassed.
He thought someone had sort of scammed our name. And I've
Yeah.
had that happen.
Yeah.
Pretending to Property Mastermind someone you don't know, but yeah, I may have thought you were that
Maybe.
scammer.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, and the other thing, we need to talk about how good our workshop was.
Oh,
Because we know that most of our people listen to this. And so thank you so much for making it a fabulous workshop.
yep. It's number 78, I think, as far as I can work out. 78 3-day workshop I've done.
Wow.
And right up there with one of the best ever, I'd say.
Yeah, just great people. And obviously.
That's what made it, though.
Yeah. You, Bob, you're pretty amazing. Talk yourself down.
Well, it's the same old Bob with every workshop, but yeah, it's such a great crowd as well. You know. Lovely.
I think the way you teach as well, you're such a great teacher. So we've got that on one side of it. Our community is amazing. We had just feedback. If you look at even social media, people saying on all sorts of platforms, the best workshop you could do, the best education you could do. And it really is. You're pretty amazing.
The best educators.
The best educators. Yeah. What a team we are. Such a good team. It was really fabulous. But we also had another lady there she said she's done everyone else's, which most people have before they come to us, because I don't know, they don't find us first. We don't market well enough. I think we've got to work on that. But anyway, she said, our community is full of great people. And she used the word that starts with A and ends in holes. She said, we don't have those people in our community. We have just really cool people.
We do attract
just nice, genuine people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. So if you want to come along next year, just even if you want to get started in property development, flick me an email, or you're welcome to have a chat with me about what we have that could suit you. We've got a few options. Yep. So that's something you might want to look into. Because,
and that way you won't go out there and buy a lemon site.
Not just, or do other courses and then go, I wish I did this, which everyone says. So do it. Yes. And then, you're right.
Makes you wonder how it happens.
How could somebody end up buying, we've called it a dud site, but we're going to refer to it as a lemon. And remember, we refer to people who buy dud sites or lemon sites as wood ducks. So how does a wood duck
property terminology,
how do they end up buying a lemon site, Bob? What's gone wrong for them?
Oh.
And what do people, this is sort of covering what to look out for.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it could be boiled down to the old, you don't know what you don't know. So they've never educated themselves on how to do all the sort of due diligence and feasibilities around picking a good site. So they've gone out there. I don't know whether they think you can learn it on the internet or whatever, but they've just done it all wrong.
And I'm going to say another word that we've got to stop saying, to be fair. But to be fair, Bob, people genuinely want to will help you. So you might ask somebody, but you don't know their level of knowledge. Just because somebody's done something, and we say it all the time, done it once or twice in a market that's really good, or you don't really know somebody's experience. And so they might be well-intentionally, is it, how do I say?
Yeah, it's still back to that.
Yeah.
I mean, you might be, say, building a 3-story townhouse, and some friend of yours has just finished a low-set villa, and you say, oh, look, what's the build cost? And they say, oh, so much a square meter. It's a huge difference between the square meter rate on a single level villa and a 3-level townhouse. And so if you adopted that low figure, it would make your feasibility look a lot better than it is. And so, you could adopt that figure in, think it's great, go and buy it, and then find out, oh my God, there's like $500 a square meter difference.
Oh, that might make a difference, hey? That'll hurt the back pocket at the end.
Yeah, so just, nobody meant to be,
No.
It wasn't dishonest. It was a bit silly, I guess, but like it can happen that simply, just getting advice off the ill-informed.
Yeah. Well-intentioned.
Well-intentioned, ill-informed.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
He wants to be one of them.
Full of them.
And another thing is just the bad due diligence. If you don't do your due diligence, and that's a form of bad due diligence.
Yeah, well, I mean, not knowing how to do it properly could be part of it. Rushing in, thinking, oh, she'll be right, mate. Because, there are deal killers out there. What I mean by a deal killer, that's another slang, I guess, but a deal killer is something that could go wrong with the site that kills the deal, I guess. It could be a sewer that runs across the site.
Yeah.
And look, often that's not a big deal because a lot of councils will let you build over a sewer. You have to get a permit. There's a bit more cost in the construction side of it, but it's doable. But then some councils won't. And you could think you're buying a 4-pack site and end up with a 2-pack site because of a sewer.
That's a back pocket effect.
Yeah, that is. Oh, well, you won't get off the ground.
No.
Or trees. In my 40 years as a developer, 40 years ago, no one really cared about trees. Now a lot of councils really do, and that's a good thing. But a tree could be a deal killer. It might be a tree, in the middle of the lot that you can't cut down, you can't trim, you can't touch. And all of a sudden, you've gone from 4 townhouses to 3 or 2. And
another one is neighbours' trees. People aren't aware of neighbours' trees. If they're on a boundary, they can actually impact what you do. And that's something that not everybody is aware of.
No, I've had that happen. But
I remember we were looking at that site, the one on the hill a while. I won't go back a couple of years. We were looking at that one.
Yeah.
You and I, and there was a big tree on the side there.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And we were like, well, but after a bit more due diligence, it meant that was a no-go. And it was just a quick splitter.
Yeah. Yep. It's, it depends on the size of the tree, the species of the tree, the position of the tree, all those things. But they're just examples of mistakes people could make on the due diligence front that affects them, affects their project, the viability of the whole thing, and they don't even know.
And a lot of that comes down to maybe impatience. We don't spend that time during the due diligence, and which comes down to you personally. If you are an impatient person, like hands up, maybe I am, maybe I'm a wee bit impatient, but or I'm more likely to jump in, I suppose. And I know a few other people in our community who are listening to this, who shall remain nameless.
Well, I mean, impatience can sometimes get you somewhere quicker and faster than another method.
But it doesn't always work.
If it works out.
Yeah. And you can wing it. We can call that winging it, really.
Yeah. And that's based on a percentage of good luck. You don't want to base everything on good luck. But then sometimes the impatience doesn't go the way you want it. But it's not like a really important thing, Your impatience to do something might just create a bit of an issue. But impatience in a property development.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Impatience in property development. Your guy that came to you. Oh,
yeah. Well, let's call him Jack.
Is that his real name?
Yeah.
Okay, let's call him Jack then.
Well, it's funny because when you say that, I'm going to tell you a story. Look, let's just call him Jack. And most people think, well, okay, it's definitely not Jack. Could be anything else. It won't be Jack. But that was my little trick.
Oh, okay. Caught you out on your trick.
Anyway, there's a lot of Jacks in Australia, so we'll let that one go.
It's a very popular name these days. So.
Yeah, well, this wasn't a new Jack. This wasn't a young Jack. This was an old Jack. And what he did, impatience, right? So he wanted to do a development, but in another city from the one he lived in, because things were moving pretty well in another city. And look, nothing wrong with that. You're doing it. You're developing in different states.
You're doing it?
I'm doing it.
We've got students doing it.
Yeah, you can do it for sure. But anyway, that's okay by itself. That's not a problem. But look, he looked at a few sites and took a bit of advice on them. They didn't stack up. And after about 3 or 4 no-goes, the impatience overtook him.
Ooh.
And so, wait for this, he found a
Drum
site. He found a site on a Monday morning. It was up for auction on the Monday evening in another city, in another state, through an agent that he didn't know. But anyway, he made a few quick inquiries. I don't know the level of due diligence he did. I'd say very close to zero. But he was determined, I'm going to buy this. He knew the zoning was okay for townhouses, probably all he knew. And sure enough, he bidded away there on the Monday night. And look, who's to say the agent wasn't just, pumping him up? Who's to say there wasn't, bids? The agent could have been just, pulling him off dummy bids. You wouldn't know. You're not there. And
because did he have a long relationship with that agent, Bob? Was that all new as well?
Oh, probably about 9 hours, maybe.
That's not a long relationship.
No, I only found the deal that
some
morning.
People it is, but yeah, but not really.
No. I mean, I would have killed that deal in probably the first couple of minutes once I started my due diligence, but I don't think he did it. Anyway, I'll keep this short. He bought the property, sight unseen, at an auction in another city through an agent he didn't know. He knew me, so he phoned me and he said, I've just bought a site. I said, oh, yeah, okay, good on you. Because I knew he'd looked at a few that were duds. And I said, I hope you've done the right due diligence. And he said, well, I admit I rushed into it a bit. He said, but
you think? Could
you have a bit of a look at it for me? I thought, oh, geez, here we go. Okay, I'll have a look at it for him. So I jumped onto Google Earth. First thing I saw, 4-lane road out the front. Okay, well, it's a bit noisy. I saw the shape of the lot, which was a triangle.
I thought, wrong shape. Bit noisy, wrong shape. What else
wrong
we got?
Shape makes it hard to design efficiently when you got, a pointed triangle. Then I saw the back over the back boundary, railway station.
Oh,
railway line.
It's 3 crosses.
Yeah. And then I followed the railway line around, and right at the point of his lot, at the point of the triangular lot, was a set of boom gates.
Boom.
Boom, all right. Ding, ding,
plus.
ding, ding, boom.
Yeah. Oh.
Every 30 minutes, the ding, ding, boom, boom went off. And then I jumped on dial before you dig and found a sewer across the lot. Doable, just complicates things a little bit. And anyway, in due course, I said, mate, you need a good lawyer, first of all, to see if you can get out of this contract. I gave him a really good lawyer just in case there was a bit of a backdoor somehow in the contract he could pull himself out of, but he couldn't. And further investigation found that council also wanted to take 9-metre strip off the front of his lot to one day build up a flyover.
Feeling his pain.
It nearly cost him his marriage.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, long story, save it for another day. Managed to dig him out to a point where he could break even after a year and quite a lot of expense, including lots of legal fees and different things.
So Bob, you did that for him. How does the average Joe blogs or Joanna blogs?
Would have bled to death.
And when do they find out after they've purchased him? When does the average wood duck, unspecied, male or female, find out that they've actually purchased a wood duck, a lemon? Sorry. When does the average wood duck realise they've bought a lemon or a dud?
Yeah. Lots of slang in there. Hey, well, look, not always immediately. If you think of what do we typically buy? We're buying a site in an infill area, a built-up area, and we're increasing the density. So typically what we do, we buy a house on land that's zoned for development, and it might be that we're going to keep the house, go down beside the house, build in the backyard, could be a second house, could be a couple of townhouses, whatever it is in the backyard, or we're going to demolish it and we're going to build some new townhouses or whatever it happens to be. Now, when we do that, what we're really doing, as far as the finance is concerned, we're just buying an investment property. Okay, it's just a house on a piece of land that doesn't have an approval, and that's what we're doing. And so we buy that, and we proceed, and we get our development permits. And around that time, we need to think, well, look, we're going to need some more money to build this shortly. I better start talking to the financier as we're getting our approvals. And the financier says, yeah, look, could be interested. I can see it's going through council, or you've already got a development permit. But one of the things they do now is they wheel out a valuer. They said, look, obviously one of the hurdles you're going to have to jump, they call it conditions precedent, if you want a real term, I've got to get a valuation. And it's at that point of valuation that it can all come undone. Well, too far down the track, they bought the site, they've settled, they've spent all the money on approvals, and now they find out it doesn't stack up.
And that's because their FISO's wrong.
A lot of the time. If they got a development permit, they would have solved the issues of the site, e.g., if there was a tree problem, that would have been solved early. And it may well have been solved after they bought it. So if there was an issue with, not being able to build over a sewer or a tree you can't cut down or these sorts of things, that would have come out in the preliminary work on the DA, and it could have died there. It could have died there because you can't get the DA you want. You wanted 4 and you can only get 2. It could have happened there, but you could go right through and get a development permit and then find out your numbers are wrong. That's what happens at that point. The valuer, being an experienced commercial valuer, understands how to do the numbers, and that's where it could all come unraveled.
I think it's a really
point.
I want to add in here because I believe that a lot of people don't realize. They think, oh, it makes a profit, we just do it anyway. But they don't realize that valuation is going to determine whether you're going to be able to borrow money, commercially, resident, whatever. That valuation has to work. So just because something, I'll do it because I can make $50,000, that's all good if you're doing the whole deal in cash yourself, and you just hope you don't sneeze and lose everything. But the reason
a lot of people don't realize,
and that's why I often have said that out loud. They just think, oh, we're making money. It's like, well, no one's going to loan you the money to do the deal because there is a certain margin that you have to reach. Yeah,
exactly. And it happens all the time. We get that comment. So you might be doing, let's say you're doing a 3 townhouse project and the financier wants you to hit a margin of 17%. What that means is your profit as a percentage of all your costs is 17%. That's a measure of the viability of a project. And you might look at a feasibility that shows 10%, but that 10% might still mean a $250,000 profit.
And you think, woohoo, I can do this.
Well, that's that's 4 or 5 years' wages for me. I'll just do that. I'm happy with the 250. The problem is the financier is not happy with the 10% return.
No,
they say, no, it's too close to the line. I won't finance it. And that's where it all comes unraveled. That's good point there. But getting back to it, let's say you used the wrong construction price, and I've seen this happen. So, like that example I gave before, where you got a construction price off a mate that's just built some low-set villas, and you're building 3-story townhouses. So you've used a low build price. The feasibility that you did came in at 17%, and now reality bites because the valuer realizes what current build prices are. They put in the proper build price, which is much higher than yours. And as a result, the margin's really low and it doesn't stack up.
And then you ain't getting no money.
Yeah, pretty much. or of course, what they'll do there, the way a valuer looks at it, they'll put in the correct build price. And let's say it's showing 11%. They'll simply lower the value of the land down until the margin lifts up to, let's say, 17. The problem with that is most financiers would still walk away from it. But it's just made your land probably less than what you paid for it. And so the only way you could ever make it work is to put an enormous amount of capital in to build your equity up. And most of the time, the financier just walk away anyway.
For many of us, we need to see that on a picture. So a lot of people are listening saying, what do you mean by that, Bob?
Come to a workshop.
You come here, we draw those pictures.
So that's why you might not even find out until way down the track. That could be, 9 months after you bought it. And now it doesn't stack up.
And that's very often what happens. It does take a lot of time before people realize that they have bought a bit of a dud and they don't know. And things, I suppose we've got enough, even mentoring students that have purchased and then come to us to learn how to develop.
Bad move.
Because sometimes, we've had a couple of those and they've just been caught with something that doesn't work. And Bob, they have to work out a strategy to work their way out of that.
There's always an answer, even if it's sell it at a loss.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's one of the things that has to happen. So let's say you bought the wrong site. You might, as I said, you might work out early in the piece that you made a mistake. And that could be when you're getting everything together for your development permit. You might find out early, or you might not find out till after you got a development permit. And it's all around the numbers, when you're looking for finance for construction. So it depends a bit when you find out. But I mean, it comes to the crunch. What are you going to do? You could wait and just sit on it. Let's say your numbers didn't work. your margin's too low. Well, what's going to bring your margin up from a low margin to a higher one when all your numbers are right and it's showing 12%? Well, the biggest thing is values go up in time. So your sale prices, your gross realization value, needs to reach a point where you're making enough profit where your margin's right. But of course,
there's a but there. Yeah, I'm going with a but, because you've got to realize that you want to do property development to make money, and we're all in it for the money. We do that for whatever we want to do. We create jobs for people, but we get to do more and more stuff, ourselves. And when you sit and hold, you're tying yourself up. A lot of people can't move forward unless you're in a position that you can, because you've got, tons of money. Otherwise, you are going to be stuck. And there's that highest and best use of your money as well, not just of the site. Are you better off holding? Are you better off cutting your losses to be able to move forward?
Yeah, and because
that needs a big whiteboard and a bottle of wine, that conversation, doesn't it?
It does.
Because it'll probably hurt.
Yeah, and even if you decide to sit on it and wait for values to go up to a point that it lifts your margin, don't forget some costs are going up. So while you're waiting for your values to go up enough, your costs are going up a bit too. So it could be years, it could be 5 years before that thing turns into a viable deal.
And what could you have done in between?
Well, that's the opportunity cost as well, So maybe it's a matter of biting the bullet. You could say one wood duck looking for another one.
We get those comments online. Hope that someone's out looking for a wood duck, because if there's a site for sale and they're wanting too much for it, so they're looking for a wood duck.
Yeah, and maybe another wood duck will bail the earlier wood duck out. But
it's like the cat in the hat. If anyone knows that story, that pink ring around the bath that they just can't get rid of, and it goes everywhere. So it's like a string of wood ducks, Paul.
Oh God, okay. Now, so
I don't think you got what I meant, but anyway,
because all these numbers are going through my head.
Oh, sorry.
So rather than wait, 5 years for everything to lift, and turn it into a viable deal, maybe it's better just biting the bullet, copping a bit of a loss, and then moving forward. In 5 years' time, you'd have probably been better off doing that.
Yeah,
because then you can get back in the market. You would have lost a bit of capital doing that, and and you'll feel a bit gun shy and lose your confidence, but that might be what you have to do. But I mean, the other alternative is to look at what other use it might have. So your 3-4 townhouse project didn't work for whatever reason. You had the wrong build cost or whatever. What else can you do with it? Maybe you can subdivide that lot into 2. And maybe that's something you could do alternatively, only if it made enough margin. But the margin on such a small project's lower than it would be on townhouses. The financier is prepared to take a lower margin on something like that. And maybe as an alternative use, that might get you out. And it might, even if it means tipping a bit more money in, there might be an alternative use that could give you a little bit of a back door.
It's really sitting down and defining a strategy out and not rushing into the answer.
Yeah.
Weighing up all the options.
Yeah, well, that's right. Talking about rushing in, I think we talked recently about people that rushed in and demolished their house before they got a development permit.
Oh, no. I was thinking about that before.
Impatience.
Yeah. Don't demo the house early.
No, so
it's a rental.
Yeah, that alternative use might get you out at a sticky situation, not where you wanted to be. You might have to pull some extra funds in. You mightn't have it. You might have to, get some invest fund. It's not a position you want to be in, trying to fight your way out of it.
So at the end of the day, what we're saying is you need to know what you're doing before you buy a site. So if you've got one, it's working out how to work your way out of it.
Get it right at the beginning.
Yes, that's it.
Really, understand how to do good due diligence, understand how to do accurate feasibilities. I mean, if you do that, you'll be okay. I mean, the market can move as well. We've seen market corrections where sale prices pull back. We've seen that recently. After a very long positive run, Sydney and Melbourne pull back a bit. So that's going to affect, you might have just settled on a site, and now your sale prices have pulled back a bit, so your margins shrunk. But, unless you're selling today, you probably won't be selling for, 18 or 20, 24 months. So let's just see what the market's like then. Don't panic yet. Might have gone up. Could be little stock on the market because people are pulled back on development. That's okay. Things happen in the market. Things go up more often than they go down. And sometimes it's just time and just riding it out. maybe it means that you keep a couple of properties at the end, and as prices recover, you can sell them off slower. There's always an answer, but sometimes the answer is a bitter pill.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's not always the answer you want to hear.
Yeah.
Answer, not always the answer you want to hear.
Oh, Queensland it's answers. Yeah, there's no R in answer.
Kiwis put an R in answer.
Or dance. I'm going dancing. Where's the R in dance?
Oh, really?
My mate Dan. Is he Dan or is he Dan?
It's Dan.
Ah, well,
There
it'll be dance for me, thanks. There you go. But yeah, not a position you want to be in.
No.
Having to try and extricate yourself from a lemon. And the point is,
and it
doesn't have to be that way.
No, exactly. Instead of having to find a solution, it doesn't have to be that way. Get yourself educated and don't rush in, and do the right due diligence, and just do it properly.
Do it properly.
Do it properly. Otherwise, like you mentioned before, you'll lose your confidence. And once you've lost your confidence, it's really hard to get back in.
Yeah, particularly if it's your first project. You might get a lemon and, you lose a bit. You might get out by the skin of your teeth. But you're right, you probably won't feel like doing a second project, which is a shame because it wasn't property development's fault.
No.
It was yours, and wear it and learn from it and have another go.
There's nothing worse than being held back. I remember working with somebody a while ago who'd done quite a few developments and then had 2 duds in a row, and he just needed me to hold his hand
when you
to
say
get restarted.
Duds, he
had some builder issues.
Yeah. I don't think he lost money, but
it took too long.
And it dragged on, and he made very little, and he worked hard to make very little, and that can happen.
And then the confidence is lost, and you don't go forward. When you start out with great intentions and you actually love it, if you done right, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason it shouldn't be done right. Follow the tick lists, everybody. There's flow charts and tick lists in the online course. Go through those.
I had a look. I broke our course down into, because we've got flow charts for each step of the way and all that sort of thing. And I collectively put them all together, and like there's micro steps in there, and it's a bigger sort of element, 235 ticks to work your way through a property development. And all you got to do is just tick them off one at a time. Like even on, say, getting finance, there could be 10 little micro steps. So there's 10, something else that's this many. Yeah. I mean, I know no one else has done that.
No. There we go.
Tick the list. Work your way through the ticks.
Follow your way through. One step at a time, and don't rush through it. Yeah, don't jump in.
No.
Laziness could just be if you're a bit haphazard. That's the type of person.
Don't take unnecessary risks.
No.
I'm just thinking something flashed into my mind. If you don't mind, another quick story.
No, cool. Love a story.
I know a story of someone who was developing in, I think it was in the Hunter region. Now, as soon as people say I'm developing in the Hunter, my mind goes straight to mining subsidence.
I just go straight to wine.
Oh, well, you. Yeah, okay. That shows the difference in our thinking. I'm thinking,
I like the Hunter.
What could go wrong in the Hunter?
Fun was that winery trip?
How good was that on? Yeah, it was a good trip. So like a lot of developments in mining areas, you have to check out the mining subsidence, because where you've got lots of mines under the ground, it varies the effect at the surface. So if there's lots of mines, I'll keep it simple, then potentially there could be some movement at the surface. And that's what you've got to watch out. And so there's experts that analyse all that, and you have to get a mining subsidence report in a lot of cases. This particular chap bought a site for a 5 townhouse project. He was moving ahead into his due diligence, past his due diligence. He knew he had to get a mining subsidence report.
I know.
But he needed the time to get it.
Yep.
And it's not something that happens in 1 or 2 days. So he had a due diligence clause in his contract, and it was slow coming, the report. He got a 5-day extension, I think, but it still hadn't come out. And the seller wouldn't give him any more extensions to his due diligence clause. So he's in a position now where he hasn't quite gotten his mining subsidence report. He can't get any longer on his due diligence. And so he's reached a point where he has to either walk away from the deal or go unconditional. And
And he chose unconditional.
Well, he contacted the engineers and they said, yeah, look, we're getting pretty close to finishing. And he said, what's it looking like? And he said, no, it's looking okay. And based on that, it's looking okay, he went unconditional. Then he got his report and it wasn't okay. And basically it almost killed any development on that site.
And probably another marriage. You always say, and it almost killed his marriage.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure about that, but
what's his name, Jack? No. No, it's okay.
No, that wasn't a joke. But there's a deal killer, and that was like I would have walked away and been really disappointed that one, that could have been a good site and I didn't get it, and two, I probably spent $3,000 or $4,000 on a mining subsidence report that didn't come up. But to me, that's like an insurance policy.
Yeah.
I mean, I never mind paying the premium on my car every year.
Yeah.
Because if I got an accident, I'm going to be really happy I've paid that premium and I've got insurance.
That's a great point, Bob. And people don't actually transfer that thought across to something like this. It's more like, oh, I've got to pay that to get
another bill.
Yeah, it's an insurance policy.
Yeah. And he punted. It's like driving an uninsured car and he had an accident. Only probably worse. There's more dollars involved than just writing off a $20,000 car, whatever. But yeah, sad story.
Don't do that. Well, I think we've covered quite a bit there, and hopefully it's been useful. I think the takeaway is get educated, jump on our site, propertymastermind.com.au, or give me a call if you'd like some more information. Just on that, we also spoke about investments, and we do offer investment opportunities to people. If you have some money you'd like to invest in a property development or receive a return on, feel free to contact me, Hilary, or admin at property. It's not Edmin, it's admin, ADMIN, at propertymastermind.com.au, and we can have a chat about what you're looking for, and maybe I could have the perfect partnership for something that you're looking for.
Yep.
We do that quite a bit. And we have some great success stories and some very happy people out there. So there you go, episode 74. Looking forward to catching up with you next week for episode 75. We hope you got something useful out of this, and your takeaway is whatever it is, plant it in your brain and move forward and get into property development. We'd love your feedback on our podcast. Feel free to share as well if you think you've got friends that might like to hear it as well. Catch you next week.
Bye now.
Bye.